It's been a very busy day. Every 3 years I get a medical check. So I do an ultrasound and blood pressure and treadmill ECG. And the cardiologist said, "You're good for another 20 years of work." So that was the good news of the day. I think good health is really important to doing your job. So it's important to look after yourself and to keep fit and to be healthy. And I'm blessed with good health. I think I've had 4 days off Parliament in the last 30 years for illness. So that's a pretty good.
You have good attendance.
Yeah, good attendance. Yeah, and then I had a meeting in town, a campaign meeting. I met with an educational organisation called Comet, which is working to try to raise educational standards right across Auckland, and had a meeting in town there. I had another meeting out in Onehunga, talking about issues of transport. And
on your motorbike?
Yeah, I've travelled around by motorbike. It's good for parking, and it's good for getting through the traffic congestion. And I've just done an interview with the main newspaper on Waiheke Island, talking about issues from their perspective. One of the things you learn is that this new super city of ours is such a diverse city, travelling from Wellsford in the north down to Waiuku in the south. It covers a huge area, and there are lots of different communities with different perspectives and different needs. And part of the challenge, I think, of being mayor is to be able to understand and to be responsive to all of our communities and to be inclusive of all of our communities. And that's geographic, interests and ethnic communities. We live in a wonderfully diverse city, and I think one of the things that makes me most proud of Auckland is how we can have that diversity, all of us proudly as Aucklanders and New Zealanders, but all of us equally proud of our own culture and background and language and where we come from. Yes. 40% of Aucklanders weren't born in New Zealand. So I had an interesting situation the other day. My youngest son got married, and his wife is half Maori and half Filipino. I had my cousins from the United States come to the wedding. One of them has a Thai wife, one of them has a Burmese wife. Their father is Italian American, their mother is English New Zealander. We are a melting pot in our country, and I think we do that better than most other places in the world that I've visited, and I've visited a lot of countries as foreign minister. At my local high school in Mount Roskill Grammar here, probably 50% of the students are Asian, predominantly from China or from India. Another 18% will be Pacifica, from the different islands in the Pacific. We have Middle Eastern students, we have African students, we have European students, and all of those students study and learn together, they grow up together. You don't have to explain multiculturalism in those schools. That's their everyday living reality, and they treat each other with respect, they work and study and play sport together, they live as a harmonious community. That's something we can be really proud of in Auckland, but we have to work to preserve that. There are still elements in our society that are prejudiced, that don't accept people as equally human beings. And in overseas examples, we can see how that can breed conflict in our society. In Auckland, we relish each other's culture. When I go to the Lantern Festival, there are several 100,000 people visiting from all parts of our community. When I go to Diwali for the Indian community, people come from all around Auckland to share in the culture, the entertainment, the dance and the foods of that particular part of our community. This is something that should make us proud to be Aucklanders, and this is a strength, because when I do a trade mission, when I was trade minister to China, I take with me local members of the Chinese community. When I go to India, the same with the Indian community. So we can reach out to other societies around the world, and we can do business with, trade with, take investment from those countries using the skills that we have in our own community here in Auckland. So all of us will find that we have grandchildren and great-grandchildren that represent some of the diversity of that city. And that's the way we want our world to be, actually. We don't want a world that's based on conflict between people because of different ethnicities and different religions. We want a world where everybody can be equally respected as a human being. What we have in common in terms of our humanity between different ethnicities is far more important than the relatively superficial differences that exist from one ethnicity to another. And you know, it's good. What a boring country this would be if we were monocultural and monolingual. The future of our country, I hope, will be both multicultural and multilingual. And that's why whenever I speak at Chinese functions, and I do every week, I say, please make sure that not only your children that are born in New Zealand and brought up as Kiwis, but your grandchildren hold on to your culture and hold on to your language, because that is a precious gift both for them and for our wider community.
Yeah, I think that's called a world heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should preserve all the dialects.
Yeah, no, and of course people, the European community, think of Chinese as one language, one society, and you and I know that there are many different groupings within Chinese society, many different ethnicities and languages. So it's very interesting. I take my executive assistant Tracy, who acts as my translator for Mandarin, and I say sometimes, what were they saying? This happened on Saturday night. She says, I don't know, that's Tao Chu language. I don't speak that. But no, it's really good. And I just think that this community, I grew up at a school just down the road from where we're sitting now, and we were very monocultural in the old days. And now I look at that school and I look at this community, it's so much more diverse, it's so much more interesting. And we are getting the people that had the courage to leave from their home country to come to a country on the other side of the world with different language, different culture, different way of doing things, but people who wanted a better life for themselves and their family, and who bring with them tremendous skills and abilities. And as I'm thinking of this function I went to, the Tao Chu Nang Association on Saturday, just to see the people who got up and performed and the skills that they brought, and to talk at my table with the people that were running businesses and making a huge contribution economically, socially and culturally to New Zealand. We should be very grateful for the contribution that successive waves of migrants have brought to this country, that have built this country to what it is today. Chan Da Chi came to New Zealand in the 1860s. He was a 16-year-old. He had no money in his pockets at all. He left the ship at Auckland because he'd been terribly seasick and he was going to go down to the gold fields. 50 years later, he was the equivalent of one of our wealthiest businessmen in today's life. He had, through his sheer hard work and skill, built up a business empire that was really successful. And my family has had quite a lot to do with the Archie family. My brother worked for Tom Archie. My sister, my younger sister, knows the Archie family well, and their children went to school together. They're a family that have been in New Zealand for 4 or 5 generations and made a wonderful contribution. And going to that family reunion, and the family has European relations and other relations that have married into the family. It was again that example of how, you know, people have come together and they have respected each other, they have married with each other, they have worked together, and the Archie family has just made a tremendous contribution to Auckland and to New Zealand.